The Dallas Cowboys probably won't make the playoffs this year, but that doesn't mean it can't be a successful season. We'll tell you how they get it done next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we're going to be answering your Twitter questions, including how much cap space do the Cowboys have in 2026 and beyond? Where can Brian Schottenheimer improve as a coach? But I want to start with this question from Evan. He wants to know, let's assume for a second, Landon, that the Cowboys aren't making the playoffs. Good assumption. What are the goals for this team for the rest of the season so it doesn't feel like a wasted year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this in certain forms of fashion, but to kind of, put it into words straightforward, it's about developing your youth and getting continuity at the positions that are weak league systems units, right? The defensive backfield, the offensive line, getting the opportunity to try to get some experience, not only on the field individually, but together for that, especially that young offensive line, I think is important. Getting an offense that's, continuing to grow and build on what we've seen so far and make adjustments. And then obviously getting the defense to a place where you feel like it's at least lined up to, correct itself in the offseason and trying to make as much headway as you can on this side of the regular season, right? And try to improve where you can, whether that's, improvement from the young players that are getting more opportunities to get on the field, better continuity and kind of, glue work between all the young defenders that are on there that are playing, or it's just finding out which one of your veterans that you don't want to bring back next year. I think there is a lot you can do to kind of set yourself up for success in 2026, even if you're not going to make the playoffs in 2025.
I think roster clarity is one thing that we would love to see. We get to the end of the season and we run through the roster. We've got a pretty good idea where everybody slots in. And you mentioned it, like some of these one-year guys like Kenneth Murray, Jack Sanborn. I think Donovan Wilson's in the last year of his deal. If you can come out of the year kind of knowing where you stand with all of those players, I do think that helps. And I think on an individual basis, I think you and I both believe they probably need to replace 6 to 7 guys on defense. Now, those aren't all starters, but 6 to 7 key contributors, right? And if you can get that number down to like 4 or 5, it's not such a daunting task to try to fix this defense in one offseason.
Yeah, you don't need 6 or 7 superstars, right? I think, half of the guys that you're looking for are kind of role players. So if you can find those guys in the group of young players that you have assembled on this defense that are kind of in that, borderline rosterable area right now, if you can get some improvement from some of these guys, then maybe you can start making headway on the roster building aspect of what's going to have to happen in this upcoming 2026 offseason.
Can I give you an example? Like Caelen Carson. If Caelen Carson can play well enough in the second half of the season where you feel good about him even being like the 4th cornerback on your team, that would be a big win because obviously you think Shavon Revel is going to be maybe one of the starters next year. You paid DeRon Bland, and maybe all you have to do is go find a nickel corner next year or one more outside corner. It's little things like that could could help you feel pretty good about this team's long-term health.
Yeah, I mean, Bridges starts playing better football, or you see Wanye Thomas start to take a step up from where he is with all the extra experience that he's getting now. So things like that. You just need to nibble around the edges with experience, with youth gaining experience. And I think that's going to make a big difference, right? It's gonna, and it doesn't need to be Ezraku rising to becoming a star.
Although
it can be
nice.
Though that would be nice, yeah. It could be Leafau starting to develop into a serviceable linebacker that you feel better about playing more often, right? Like, and I think it just being able to kind of get more serviceable play from the guys that you have on these cheap rookie deals, it's going to help with the team building aspect, but also, your budgetary aspect, which is going to come into play as well.
One more player thing I want to mention. I think Quinnen Williams is going to be a big part of this. If Quinnen Williams can come in and be a Pro Bowl or all pro caliber defensive tackle, I mean, that's what you traded for him to do. I mean, that's why you gave up all these picks. Not saying he hasn't been that. Sometimes when you trade for these players, it takes them a while to get going. If by the end of the season, there's just no doubt, like, hey, this is a top 3 defensive tackle in the league in our system, that is a huge win, because you're just going to feel so much better about your front 7 if he gets back to being that caliber player.
Yeah, and again, I think that's why we went back to the question that we got when the trade made. Why did you do the trade now? It's because you want to get this guy in here and see how it transforms your defense, and then kind of build naturally and organically based on the opportunities that are going to be provided by a guy like having Quinnen Williams in the middle of your defense, right? So you get in here in the back half of the season, if you suddenly see Ezeraku kind of light it up because he's getting a little bit less attention outside, or Osa Odigizua kind of, getting even more opportunities, it's going to change where you and how you attack the players that you're accumulating for this defense next year. So get the guys that are in here that are difference makers, see how they affect the rest of the defense, and then make your adjustments accordingly.
2 more quick things, just team wise. Number 1, it'd be really nice if they could establish an identity, and they have done that to a degree. I mean, this is a high caliber offense, but still too many times they have some of these up and down games. But just kind of know what team you have at the end of the year. And I would love to see them pull off a couple upsets. Like I don't think anybody really anticipates them, winning 7 of their last 8 games and making the playoffs or anything like that. But it would be really nice if, hey, you go toe-to-toe with Kansas City on Thanksgiving and you beat them, or you play the Lions the following week and you upset them. Those are sometimes the games that can end up helping long-term. And I think the best example of this was a few years ago. I think it was the end of the 2022 season, where the Lions played the Packers in Lambeau in week 18. All the Packers had to do was get into the playoffs, and the Lions won that game. Didn't mean anything for them, but it was that game that kind of set the wheels in motion. And then in 2023, they were phenomenal. They made the NFC Championship game. If they could have a couple of games like that where you're going toe-to-toe with these Super Bowl caliber contenders, I think that will help in the long run a lot.
Yeah, and along those lines, like we talked about continuity along the offensive line. For me, a lot of that is about pass protection and being able to deal with stunts. But more than that, to kind of get to what you're saying, get back to being a physical run football team, right? Like that's a good, you want to talk about going on the road and stealing a game on the road from good teams, or beating teams that you're not expected to beat. Have a run game, have a physical run game, because that travels well. It's always difficult to deal with, and it's just another angle that's going to help your defense and the already good pass offense be even better. So I think kind of reestablish, not saying we established the run, Marcus. I'm just saying we reestablished what we had earlier in the season. Now that Booker's back healthy, now that BB's back, let's get back to mashing people a little bit, and I think that will help all the other things we've talked about.
If you go back to some of our conversations that we had last January after the Cowboys missed the postseason, we said they really need to fix this run game, because the only way that you're going to be able to have success in the postseason is to be able to run the ball and do it effectively when teams know that you are running the ball. And to their credit, they went out and they got Brian Schottenheimer as their head coach. They signed Clayton Adams to be their offensive coordinator. They drafted a guard at pick number 12, and Javonte Williams is one of the most effective running backs in the league. They got a whole bunch of other issues, but it would be nice if they can kind of continue that positive momentum.
Yeah, just getting back to that and getting that momentum, like you talked about, rolling into 2026. Like, hey, establishing that mindset that we're a physical run football team. That's the standard moving forward. That's the standard moving into the offseason, and only building on that going into 2026.
All right, Lane, let's talk about the Cowboys 2026 cap situation, because there's a lot of nonsense going on right now regarding that number. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, But now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's sad. Software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. And by uniting your employees, teams, and departments all in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, the busy work, and the silos that your software has created. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's not a better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late game push. And right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com and to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I also want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. I couldn't have done it with all you guys' help. So thank you so much. Landon, this next question comes from Mark. He wants to know, I'm seeing some irregularities when it comes to the Cowboys cap situation from a 4-letter network. Yes, there was a segment on a show where they said the Cowboys were $86 million over the cap for next year. We'll get to that. Can you guys discuss some release candidates for next year and the total cap savings? So first of all, Landon, this team is in fine cap shape. We need to mention that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I haven't seen the report on the 4-letter network because I have YouTube TV. And so I just completely missed any opportunity to
there
see
you go.
it. So,
good job.
Yeah. Like I think that there's look, you look where the cap is right now. And obviously the Cowboys are one of these teams that leverages these different cap mechanisms. So it's not always just quite as simple as what you may see when you go straight to over the cap. There's a lot of explanation that kind of goes into a lot of this, especially when you're talking about next year's cap. So yeah.
Number one, do not worry about the cap. They will be just fine. But right now, if you go over to overthecap.com, you will see that the Cowboys are currently $35 million over the cap next year. What I need to tell you guys about that is right now they have $20 million in cap space. That money's going to roll over. And while it won't be exactly 20 million, it's going to be pretty close. So you're already talking about it only being 15 million over the cap. Let's run through some players that they could potentially cut or move on from and talk about the cap savings. So number one is Terence Steele. Landon, there's no guaranteed money left on his deal. They can release him as a post-June 1 cut, save $14 million with a $4 million dead cap. Would you do that?
Well, I think it's one of the things we're going to find out, right? Because we're going to see what Nate Thomas can do a little bit. We're going to see if there's an opportunity for him to kind of take that job. I kind of think that I don't necessarily. I think it's a tough call, right? Because I think Terence Steele's been very, very good as a run blocker. Like he has kind of been rejuvenated, at least this season, as a run blocker. But the pass blocking has still kind of lingered as a problem with him at certain points, and that's going to continue to be the issue on the right side. But I will point out that if you do just those two moves, right, just the rollover from this year's cap plus getting rid of Terence Steele, that almost gets you back to zero for Correct. The cap 2026. Yeah. So. There's a reason that number is difficult because it is a big number, and you're not quite getting all pro or Pro Bowl level play from Terence Steele.
Here's my hope. I hope that Steele plays well enough in the second half of the year that you discuss maybe fixing his contract or restructuring it in a way that, hey, let's give him some more guaranteed money. but let's maybe take that cap number down a little bit. Let's take some of the base salary down, and maybe he can make up with it for incentives, games played, all that kind of stuff. I just think he's not a great right tackle, but it would be really nice to have him for another year, at least as a option. So that way, if Nate Thomas isn't ready, you can keep it right tackle. You can be your swing guy. Just one of the names to consider. Let's run through some other ones. Trevon Diggs, you can June 1st release him or designate him as a June 1st release and save $15.5 million with $2.9 million in dead cap.
Yeah, this is the tough one, right? Like, I mean, I think just because you don't have very much in the cupboard right now, and I think how we feel about this is much like the Terence Steele situation is gonna depend on what we see from the guys that are in his spot outside of him, right? What we see of Shavon Revel and when he comes back from injury, what we see out of Caelen Carson these last few weeks. I imagine that the plan will likely be to let him go and then probably prioritize a defensive back, a cornerback, in the draft at some point next year. I don't know if the first round pick, but certainly as high as you can, right? So I would say that he's probably, yes, likely gone, especially when you add in all the other kind of non on the field stuff. I won't say off field stuff, but not stuff that has nothing to do with this play.
All right, so let's do those two moves alone. You're already at $29.5 million in cap savings. Two moves. A couple other ones. These are going to get a little harder. Malik Hooker, his cap number is $9 million for next year. You can cut him before June 1st. It would save you $7 million. It would be a $2 million dead cap hit.
Well, let's lump this in with Wilson. What's Wilson's cap? Because if
Wilson is a free agent after this year.
Okay, so I think it's tough to move on from both safeties, especially as a team that, man, I mean, we've gotten so far away from forgetting what it was like to not have any safeties on this team, and it's been so light. It's been so nice. I would be a little bit hesitant at this point from walking away from Hooker, even though he's been hurt this year. I do think he kind of serves a role that almost no one else on this team kind of does very well, which is that back end single high safety. So he's one that I think I would hem and haw over a little bit.
Okay, so let's leave him. Kenny Clark, $21.5 million if he's released outright with a $0 in dead cap hit.
I think I re-sign Kenny Clark. Like I see what he wants and maybe sign an extension or something like that. See if we can lower that cap hit number a little bit, get it to something more agreeable.
Like maybe around the $12 million range. So let's leave that one. A couple others that I wanted to leave through. This one, again, this is entirely dependent on how the rest of the year goes. Logan Wilson, $6.5 million if he's released outright, $0 in dead cap.
Yeah, I think with Logan, we got to see what we got here. Yeah. I don't imagine re-signing him though.
Probably not. I kind of think he's a half-year rental. If he's awesome and he outperforms everything you hope, maybe you leave him at that number. But I got to believe the long-term goal linebackers, DeMarvion Overshown, veteran, maybe Maris Leafau, and then a draft pick. Then it's really hard. There's not a lot of other names in there that you could cut. But just by doing Steele, Diggs, and Wilson alone, you're already under the cap. They also have the option of restructuring CeeDee Lamb, and that's an easy one. CeeDee Lamb's 27 years old. You could save $19 million by restructuring him. That seems like, to me, a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and like I said, there's going to be these mechanisms, Dak's deal, CD's deal, that you're going to be able to have triggers to pull. I'm sure Ferguson probably has something in his deal too. It's probably in a smaller scale, obviously, because of the numbers, but still, they're going to have ways to pull triggers and create money pockets that they can get. So I imagine they'll do a couple of them probably before the end of the season too, just to add it to the amount that they can roll over to next year. So yeah, there's certainly not in money trouble. Listen, the other argument too with that whole thing was that people didn't like the Quinnen Williams deal because of the cap space, which is hilarious because originally you think that Micah Parsons wasn't going to eat up that cap space for the money that you're going to get for Quinnen Williams. So yeah. Anyways,
and then there's obviously the Dak Prescott restructure. You can do an easy restructure, save $31 million, and now you've got the money to sign whoever you want, George Pickens, Javonte Williams. They have a couple of interesting decisions coming up, Landon. I want to run through them very, very quickly.
Yeah.
TJ Bass is a restricted free agent, a first-round tender, 7.8, million. That means if anybody else signed him to a deal, they would have to give you a first round pick. Second round tender is 5.6 million. An original round tender is 3.4, and that just means the Cowboys could match any offer.
I think I get a second round tender, man. It's tough. Like these interior guys, they're hard to find.
Two more. You could do the same thing with Brandon Aubrey. 7.9 for a first round, 5.6 for a second round, 3.4 for a third round or for a original round.
I don't know. I think second round, maybe. Like I'm a little nervous.
I have a hard time seeing a team giving up a second round pick for a kicker.
Yeah, but I think I still feel like I need to insulate myself.
Okay. One more that I wanted to run. Brock Hoffman, same thing, same number, 7.8, 5.6, 3.4.
I think same thing with Bass, right? Like, original tender, maybe second round if you feeling spicy. I would probably put original tender on him because I think he's probably more liked here than he is elsewhere.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Cowboys are in fine cap space. Like they're going to have plenty of money to bring back George Pickens, fix, give Quinnen Williams an extension, fix Kenny Clark's contract. Do not worry. They are just fine. Let's talk about Brian Schottenheimer. What do we want to see from him in the second half of the year? We'll get to that next.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day. One in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, last question here from Mark. He wants to know, what do you guys want to see from Brian Schottenheimer in the second half of the year? Where does he need to improve?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe just I think we should see a little bit better understanding of where the totality of his football team is when he's a play caller. Right. Like, I think for a guy who I feel like really has a good grasp on the head coaching part of this so far, for being a young head coach, for being a first-year head coach, it feels like the head coaching aspect of this, from being a leader to, managing the roster to dealing with superstar players, dealing with the lower ranked players. I think he handles that excellently. And I think we got even more examples of that with the reporting on how he's handled the Marshawn Kneeland thing so far. It sounds like he's handled that very well. I think the areas in where I want to see him improve a little bit is as a play caller, understanding, internalizing that he knows what kind of defense he has, and maybe being a little bit more aggressive and responsive to that to help his offense out and say, hey, we need these points because our defense is not going to be able to stop these guys. And just kind of being more aggressive when the time calls for it, to help his defense out a little bit.
Yeah, because I think some of the play calling stuff, that can just be a little fluky, and it can come and go week to week. I'd like to see the process be better of knowing when to go for it in the right situations and maximizing, your win probability. And you're right, like knowing your team. Like there's been multiple times where he's trusting a defense that he shouldn't trust. I think that's going to change a little bit in the second half of the season, but it's little things like that that can ultimately make the difference in one win a season. And a lot of times that's what separates playoff teams from non-playoff teams. So it's just those moments in the game that you would like to see him maximize.
Yeah, and I think that, overall, like, I mean, especially considering our concerns from where we were about not only him being a first time head coach, but again, not being the play caller last year and stepping into both of those roles for the first, not for the first time as a play caller, but stepping into both of those roles, and certainly together for the first time for him, and obviously never having even been a head coach. So the fact that we're sitting here and talking about, making slight adjustments with the wrench and not just hitting the engine with the hammer and starting over, I think is a pretty good sign to that he's had a lot of success for a first year head coach. But we still feel like there's still some stuff that we hope that he's going to tinker with in over the bye week to kind of get even more juice out of this offense specifically.
Yeah, and the offense, like, I thought their best game plan of the year was against Green Bay, and they were down CeeDee Lamb and at 1.4 offensive line starters. And it's like since those guys have come back, the offense has gotten a little bit more stale. I just like to see them continue to be creative and improve and be dynamic on that side of the football. I think it's going to come. Brian Schottenheimer has mentioned that they're going to make some changes after the bye. Let's see them. Like, this is what I want to see. Can you actually follow through with what you're saying to the media? It's going to be a fun final 8 games of the season.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing here for me is that I've actually feel like we're on a trajectory with Brian Schottenheimer that, a couple years down the road, and this is obviously a 10,000 foot view of the team, right? If you still are happy with it, I do feel like Schottenheimer could be the kind of guy that steps back and is the full CEO coach. And hands over the pass calling reins to somebody else, just because maybe it becomes more than he can handle. But as it stands right now, well, the guy, I heard he's available. But I think as it stands right now, I don't feel like, we're at a point where I'm considering asking him to give up play calling duties or anything like that. I think it's still just about adjustments, and his chemistry with Dak is obviously very keen.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.